All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of What's What BR. We have returning guests and fans and friends. We have Tara and Mary from East Baton Rouge Parish Library. How are you guys?
We're
Good. How are
great,
y'all doing?
Brandon. Happy to be alive.
Doing great.
Yep. We are dating ourselves. We're the Friday before the big game. Got the
Right.
Bengals on ready. We're all
That's right.
keeping up with that as much as we're supposed to, right? So how are things over at the library first? We hadn't talked in a while, but people are showing up again, right?
They are, Brandon. They're showing up to not just the main library, but all the other branches. There's 14 locations. They're checking out books. They're using computers. They're going to the digital library, and they're attending programs.
Yes.
And it really warms our heart when we see them not only just dash in to grab a book and dash out, but to hang around and go to story time or attend a program. And some of our wonderful performers are coming back. Just last week, we had a visit from our favorites, the Alurettes, with
Harvey Rabbit and Friends.
Rabbit and Friends. And we've had jugglers back, and we've had musicians come back. And I hope to one day hula hoop. But those kinds of things are coming back. And of course, for the grown-ups, the lectures are back, the workshops are back, and we're heading towards some more fun programs as we kick off One Book, One Community with Zydeco Music. That's coming up March 5th, and that's going to feature RJ and Creole Smooth. We're going to have jambalaya. I believe there will be boudin and maybe a little alligator to try out here on the plaza at the main library. So we're starting to get excited about people engaging with activities and collections and the services of the library. It's good.
That's amazing. I think we've all been waiting for this, right? It's fine. We've had to go through the shut it down, go through the drive-through, quarantine the books to, hey, we're back open, but don't touch the books, and then touch it. And then we're going to go, we're going to go let it incubate over here for a little bit. Now we're back. We're touching books. Things are open.
That's right.
Things are moving.
That's right. Because really in 2020, that was the dark days.
Yes.
2021, we pretty much come on in, touch everything. We just sprayed after you left.
Yes.
But now, except for, the occasional rise and fall with new variants, we're currently under the mask mandate that city parish buildings are observing, unless we're on a recording, such as we are right now. But I hope that is lifted pretty soon. And it's just the price we pay to have the doors open to the public. So our staff is happy to pay it. And in fact, the children's services staff and teen services staff were wearing masks even without a mandate because they knew so many of the children and teens may not have been vaccinated. So we're just taking that extra step to try to make things more comfortable for our patrons and have our patrons be more confident when they come and visit us, because we want them to stay a long, long time, Brandon.
Well, there's a lot to do. I've been there a number of times recently. Not to go in all the way down that rabbit hole, but it's like you've always told me, it's not your grandparents' library, or anymore. The books are still there, but there's a whole lot more.
So much more. So much more.
That's right.
So tell me what. So you guys got some news, right? Or I guess we all have some news.
Yeah, we do.
And this news involves you too, Brenda.
Yes,
it does. So I can't really pretend that I don't know what we're talking about. But, I think everybody, there's all of us here on this, call, and then there's a lot of other people.
Yes.
We've had Stuart and Ethan and Emily, and then a number of people from your staff have gotten involved. We've kind of rallied around to grassroots, kick something off, that's impactful and making a difference. So
and it's really a dream of ours for a number of years that we just kept putting back in the drawer because we couldn't see our way to pulling the trigger on that project. But because of a conversation that you and I had as we were getting ready for the Martin Luther King celebration, Things just started to happen, and they snowballed in a wonderful, wonderful way. And we have launched the home library pilot project, where we're targeting is not the best word. It's kind of got negative connotations, where we have selected.
We're focused.
We're focused.
Yeah.
That's right. We're focused on third graders in some specific schools in East Baton Rouge Parish, schools that are struggling.
Yes.
And we would call these more at risk. It's less than 400 students. And with the home library project, it's such a simple concept. But if you don't have a book, you can't read it. And research shows that kids who read succeed. And research shows that if you don't have books in your home, the kids are less likely to progress and maintain reading in schools. And research also shows that if you're not reading on level by fourth grade, you count the number of prison beds you're going to need in 20 years based on that number. That's a terrible thing to know. So because of that, it seems so simple, but our thought was, let's just put books in the hands of the children that's free and clear. They don't have to worry about bringing them back. They don't have to worry about owing money to the library. They don't have to worry about any of those things. And we just needed a way to have the children receive books that could be their very own books, because many of the children in this population perhaps don't have books at home. Their families are not in a habit of having books in the home. They're not like you and I, where every month we eagerly looked at the Scholastic book fair flyer and circled all the things we wanted, and our parents paid that money to get those books home for us. So this is a simple, slow drip way to start building a habit of reading in the home by having the children have their own home library. And of course, we hope that they share those books. We hope that their brothers and sisters start to see the books. There's a whole cultural thing that happens. The same way you can spiral down, you can bubble up. And that's what we want to see happen with this. We're working with the 5 schools, the teachers, the principals, vice principals, and school librarians are being so wonderful. It's been nothing but a joy. And the reason we got involved with you, of course, was through the Kids Scoop News, because we've been so proud to be a part of that since last April. And I had called you and said, we need a few more copies of that for this celebration. And I had revealed to you that, it's going to be a thing, and we're going to make sure that children who come and visit the bookmobile get to leave with their free book. And then I wandered off and told you our dream to have a book in every hand, and not just one book, but every single month. Again, drip,
a new
drip,
book.
drip. And slowly build that habit, build that culture in the home. So
you said it, when we first, when we first got involved in with, Kids Scoop News and bringing it to the community, it was I'd read the statistics and, looked at everything, but the one that you said was, it's that 3rd and 4th grade reading level that people don't realize that's the starting number. That's, you plug that in and you put a number of factors into it, and that's where we determine those prison beds. And it was like, okay, we've got to do something. But what I didn't get, and then someone told me, was up until 3rd grade, you learn to read. And then from 3rd grade on, you're reading to learn.
Yes. That's right.
And if we can't fix that, and I think what we, one of our missions was to get this, just every kid we can get in front of, if we can get them material. That's why this project aligns so well for us, that if we can make that happen, it's such a simple problem.
Right.
It reminds me of a conversation, and I think it's on YouTube. Tony Robbins talks about how when he was playing golf, he was horrible. I'm not a golfer, but he'd shank it to the right or slice it to the left, whichever one it is. And so we paid this instructor over and over, and he kept going. And then finally they were playing one day and he just shot it completely off in the woods. And he just was like, I'm done. I don't know why I'm paying you. I'm not any good. It's not any better. And the instructor, and this will come back to a point, looked at him and goes, no, you're a millimeter off. He was like, what are you talking about? I'm 100 yards into the woods. And he goes, if you change the angle of attack by just 1 millimeter, the trajectory, the difference that makes. And I bring this back to, the home library project with, the Kids Scoop News, and just, we had some of these kids, they were crying that they got to keep the book, and they got to keep the, paper, that they didn't have this material at home. And that one little, like, it's kind of, as an entrepreneur, I'm wired to be optimistic. It's, you just have to be. And I think every one of us in this program, are, but it's like, if we can just spark one little bit of, that was awesome. That was a cool story. And then we can give them the next one. That one little difference, that 1 millimeter that we're off, the impact that it makes, that's a whole nother, that's a job, that's a career, that's a changing of a family tree,
That's right.
Down the road. And it's not, and hopefully I don't mess anybody or upset anybody, but it's not a bureaucracy. It's not a podium. It's not a platform that we're trying to stand on. It's we're putting the physical material, in these kids' hands.
In their hands. Yep.
If this is the foundational building block, then we're just going to give you those blocks, you know?
Yeah.
And then let them build.
That's right. Because yes, they could come to the
to.
library and check out books, but how many of them are in a family structure that can get to the library where they can check out books, or that is not afraid of checking out books because they're afraid they'll lose it? So we're coming to them. It's kind of like, if you won't come to me, I want to come to you. And we know where they are. They're at school. So by the same way, we made sure that school kids could get digital library cards. So if nothing else, they can get to the digital library. And we did it by going to the schools. We didn't wait for the kids to come into the library because kids can't drive themselves to the library.
No.
Not the 3-year-olds, right?
Yeah. Well, there's that 5-year-old in California that was doing a good job of it, but that's generally not what we want. So we're meeting them where they are and trying to spark that excitement, that pride of ownership. We're telling them to write their name in the books.
Yeah, I want to encourage them.
That's right. And then we're going to kind of see about since it is a pilot project and we do want to expand beyond just these 5 schools, we're recording things, we're taking, we're collecting metrics, we're looking at outcomes and impacts and see what works and what doesn't work and what could scale out to all the 3rd graders in all the public schools and charter schools in the parish. And then beyond that, let's go to the 2nd grade. And then, how can we do that? How can we roll out such a program? Because it's not just the cost of buying the books, it's the manpower required and getting into the curriculum, because teachers have a lot to accomplish. And we don't want to be a burden to them. We don't want to interrupt them except in the most positive of ways. And so we picked books that are relevant and engaging at different lexile levels. That's the reading levels, so that if the child is perhaps not a strong reader, they'll find something that they like. And if they are ready for those more detailed, stretchier chapter books, there's something wonderful for them. And just like anything else, well, the Olympics is going on now, and they're talking about someone who trains at the same time as the gold medalist. And the less qualified athlete stretches to rise to the level of the gold medalist that they're training with. The same thing happens in a classroom or in a family. If one person is reading the stretchier book, the chapter book, the book that doesn't have so many pictures, and maybe the words are a little bit smaller and there's more of them, and they're so excited about it, their peers will kind of like, I want to be
Yeah.
with the cool kid that's reading the good book, the better book, the richer
Yeah.
book. And so
It
all
makes
that
them strive for it.
Yeah.
They wanna be involved, and they wanna should be able to share the same things that their peers are.
That's right, because they
So-
do talk among themselves.
Yeah.
And by the same token, we have our favorites.
Yes, we have
You
our
know, I will
favorites.
still read Pete the Cat, you know, and that's a simple book, and that's charming and fun, and I just like it. Pete, I got my blue shoes, I'm happy to have that, but you want to give them opportunities, you want to give them choices,
Yep.
and let them choose. That's part of this.
Yes.
Building a habit of reading also means I know what I'm going to like, but I'm also willing to try something new.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a smorgasbord at the buffet.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want artichokes, but you're willing to try broccoli. But if
Yeah.
you see the cool kid eating the artichoke spear, you may try it.
Yeah.
But at least the broccoli that you're comfortable with is still there. That's your
Mhm.
old friend. So
Yeah.
Well, you said something that I think is key, here. You said you meet them where they are. And
Yes.
when we were talking about this program, internally here and kind of where it was, and I was talking with some people, one of the things that we equated this, not exactly, but very similar. And we looked at an old, model of, we went and looked back at Blockbuster. Like you could go to the Blockbuster, and you could get you could rent a movie, you could get it, you could do the whole thing. But the consumer, that model we know now didn't work 100%. Not that you can't go still, but if we can bring them something to them, make it easier. Like we can't expect where we're going after here, right, is, literacy, and really trying to just take this head on and inspire that reading, get that spark it.
Yeah.
And just as we said, we can't get them to drive. We want everyone, and just as we were talking, we've got people showing up at the library, and that's great, but we've got to spark that
Yes.
at a young age so that they, continue to come. But if we can meet them where they are, to take a page out of Amazon's book, a frictionless transaction to make it easier for them.
Yeah.
That's where I believe this really makes that impact. We've seen, I've seen, at the schools that we've gone to, the kids are excited to be able to, read a book. We've had, Pabby from your team, just telling stories and getting living. I don't even think telling the story is the right word. It's like expressing the story.
That's right. Well, she is a master storyteller, so she's not reading a book.
Yeah. So
performing it.
She is performing a story, and you are part of the story. So,
and for those kids to see that, and then to be able to turn around and be able to say, here's a package. When we put all this together, it was what it was a Kid Scoop News, the latest edition of Kid Scoop News. They picked the book, and we had all this prepackaged, and then they got, colors to work the puzzles inside of Kid Scoop News. We had the pencil for them to be able to write in the book and to be able to put things together, letters for, the parents, all put into this perfect package that a third grader, fourth grader, is not tearing apart, and it makes it home.
Right.
That's right.
Which is, makes it, for them. But then the family's able to get involved.
That's right.
There. And that's where I think we've all talked about, Tara, and you and I talked a couple weeks ago. That's what we got to do, right? And how do we really measure that? How do we get that? We can go tell parents, and I think everybody's heard, spend 20 minutes every day reading with your kids. But if you don't have anything to read to them,
they have to have something first, in order for it to be successful.
Right.
And that's what this program's all about, is getting those books in the homes so that they can share them with their families and they have something to read. And we want to get them something new every month so that they have lots to choose from, and to share both with their family members and with their friends. We encourage them to exchange books so that, they can tell each other about them and be like, oh, that one was really cool. I want to read it too. So just want to get them excited about it.
That's the trick. And that's what we've got to find. And it goes back to where I believe it's so simple. This is not a complicated problem to
Not
solve.
rocket science.
Not at all.
It's just, how do we do it? And I think that's what, Mary, as you kind of alluded, we were working something completely different. We had a meeting for a whole nother concept, another project
Mhm.
around literacy, mind you, but it turned into this, well, we could do this. Well, it's like, well, if you could do this, then we could do this. And if you do that and that, and we do this, what if we did this? And it's just, we've
Right.
now, rolled this through. We're going back, again, we've
Right.
got, right now we're touching what, 400? It's about 400 kids
Under
across 5
400.
schools,
Mhm.
That's right.
So what have you guys been hearing at the end of the day? I know what we've been hearing. So
I've been hearing nothing but net.
Nothing but that. Yes, lots of good comments. Of course, like you said earlier, the kids just have an excellent response right away. They're excited to hear the stories that Patty's sharing with them, and they're excited to see that they get to choose which book that they want. And some of them are eager to open that pack and start reading right away. And and some of them are like, oh, I want to make sure I get this home, and so they're really excited about it. And of course, we've seen both peers coming up together, friends, and like, oh, they all want to get the same book so they can all read together.
And that's a cool way to do it as
awesome
well.
way to do it. But we also see friends coming up and saying, well, I'll get this one and you get this one, and then we can swap. So that's exciting to see that they have those interests in further experiencing the books.
And I'm going to tell you, that's some critical thinking going on
Yes,
right there.
It really
That's
is.
some strategizing for either of those two groups, to either do it as a team and read together, or do it as a cohort that's going to swap stuff around. I love both those approaches, and I commend them for thinking that far ahead. Now, going forward, we don't want to make it like work. We don't want to make it like school where, okay, now I gave you this free book, now you must report on it. No. Because we want to keep that excitement alive. It's fragile. It's fragile. So we're just going to very carefully try to elicit some comments from them to see how they've engaged. And one thing we want to give them is permission to not like a book.
Yeah.
So just because you read the book and took it home, maybe you didn't like a character in the book. That's okay. Maybe you didn't like the way it ended. That's okay. How would you make it end? That gives me an opportunity to ask you a critical question.
Right.
What would you do differently if you wrote this book? So the book becomes then the start of something new.
Yeah.
And that starts that critical thinking, call and response that we look for, that educators look for. And so one of the secret goals, because to me, it's all about stealth learning, Brandon. It's
very much so.
So the secret goals are the children going to be more participatory in class? Are they going to be more confident in their opinion about something when the teacher or the school librarian asks a question related to literature or why someone did something? Will they slowly build confidence? Will their reading skills actually improve? Of course, we hope that. We kind of think they will, but we'd like to see some proof of that. And we'll be working with the school teachers and the school librarians to try to track not just the engagement, but are they maintaining at level? Are they increasing at level?
Yeah.
All the other places where anything close to this program has happened has seen that the literacy scores not only maintain but improve.
Right.
So that's of course the bottom line for this is to not only get them reading at level. Oh, please let them be reading at level by the time
fantastic. That's really the ultimate goal.
And then increase. And especially since we're heading towards summer, it's really not that far from now. Over the summer, there's something called the summer slide when the kids aren't being constantly reminded of such things as numbers and letters and words, that they tend to slip a little. And by the time they go back to school here in August, the teachers sometimes have to rework 6 to 9 weeks of material. We really don't have that kind of time to waste in Louisiana as a whole, and specifically here in Baton Rouge. We need the children at level where they need to be so that they can read to learn.
Right.
And because we know there's an issue. The business community knows that it's difficult sometimes to hire people who are skilled or who can be trained because they lack these literacy tools. They are not facile with reading and comprehension.
And that's what we tried to do, or try to do with Kids Scoop News is kind of secretly get them engaged with activities and
Self-learning.
puzzles. And at the end of the day, you didn't realize, but you read the instructions and you've been reading all these words inside the word search, in
Yes,
order to
right.
find them.
That's
And if
right.
we can continue that over the summer, don't have that. But what we also notice is this is one of those compounding problems that I don't think people realize, that
Yes.
it's the simplest form. Like if you just said, well, you know what, let's just go one lane and say it's just literacy. Well, that's bad, right? We get to a point, they're having trouble in school, but what people don't always think of, and we have to connect the dots for them, and I'm sure you guys do as well, where it's like, okay, so if we've got, Johnny in class who can't read at level, or he's really struggling to read, and the teacher passes out the papers and says, here, work on this assignment.
Yeah.
He's having trouble reading the instructions,
Uh-huh.
which then in turn means he's not getting the work possibly done in time. Or
Mhm.
maybe he, leans over to see what somebody else is doing, not with the anticipation that he wants to cheat on the assignment, but he just
Right.
wants to figure out what is he supposed to do.
Right.
Maybe he then gets in trouble for it, and then he's now is
Compounding
beating himself
failure.
up.
It's compounding failure.
Right.
Yeah,
And
right,
so
exactly
he now
right.
feels that he's not, adequate enough, or he's
Yeah.
not smart as the other kids, and he's never going to get there. And you let
Right,
that
yeah.
happen starting at fifth grade. And how many years do you sit there and just feel like you're not going through the motions, to where now you're an early teen, and next thing you know, we've got dropouts.
Yeah.
That's
and,
right.
and then when they get home and they don't have that extra help from home, the home side of things, they're trying to struggle with their homework and their research skills that aren't there, that aren't where they need to be. And then it just compounds even further,
Right.
because then the deterioration of their motivation at school becomes even worse at home. Because even at school, at least they can raise their hand and ask a question, or they can turn to their friend, like you say, and kind of say, oh, well, how am I doing this right? They don't have anybody at home to do that sometimes. And so this gives them that excitement to learn.
And we found I don't know the psychology or if I'm even right, but this is just that gut intuition is what we believe is, if you looked at this and said, okay, let's drop down to that, second, third, fourth grade, that early years, you might know that you're having trouble, but you don't know that you are having trouble. Like you're just struggling. And I believe that there's this small window. And unfortunately, by the time you realize, hey, I'm not getting this, is right about the same time where you're too embarrassed to probably admit that, hey, I'm
That's
not
right.
getting this.
That's
Right.
right.
And so they don't ask for help, and you go
Right.
through, and people don't realize, like, if you go, we're talking about, kids and children, but there's a large population of adults that, would be defined as they've just gone through life that way, because no one
21%.
wants to 21. Yes.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
You don't
Yeah.
want, and that's the thing. It's like, at what point, if everybody thinks back and goes, okay, do you remember your third grade year, or fourth grade year? And they're like, yeah, maybe a little bit. Okay, do you remember your sixth or seventh? Oh, yes, I remember junior high. Would you have wanted in junior high to raise your hand and say, hey, I have trouble, I can't read the instructions?
You
Right.
would not.
No one ever.
No one. No.
Yeah, said no
So-
one ever.
Definitely. Right, right.
Yeah.
But what's really
So that's the thing. That's that window. That's where, like we said, we're so close, and that's what makes the difference, I think, in how this works. Because it doesn't matter what you're doing, what career path, whether it's, attorney, or if it's, working in wildlife and fisheries, whether it's, building. Everybody's got the simple from, I've got a work order, or I need a measure, or I need to do, if you're building IKEA furniture, you still got to read.
Yeah,
even though they've got pictures, right?
Right.
That's right. You have to read the directions for recipes, to take your drugs, to talk to your doctor,
Yes.
to fill out government forms. You can hardly apply for a job anywhere without typing things into a computer.
Yeah.
So if you can't read,
it reaches
you
everything.
can't put it back out there.
No.
So it's all connected, and it's so wonderful that when they're young, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade, they're still so excited, like you
Yes.
said, and they haven't possibly striated and said, well, they're the smart kids and I'm not a smart kid, so why even try? They're still all,
Yeah,
it's still all potential.
there's not as much judgment
Yes,
in those lower grades.
right. So we have to strike now.
Yes, build
and-
that confidence
yeah.
and get them to have better comprehension skills and communication skills and
And
just
class engagement.
class engagement. Class engagement is huge, because the thing is if they can be confident enough to raise their hand in class, then they're confident enough to ask for help when they need it. Period.
That's right.
Whatever walk of life it is, you know.
And you mentioned the classroom, and that's one of the things, some of the feedback that we've heard with a lot of the teachers that we've talked to. So much is gone, and maybe I've said it on this, I say it on every show. I'm a very technical, person. I like high tech. I like my gadgets. I like, all that. But at the same time, that's where a lot of education is moving towards. iPads, online learning, apps, all of that. And I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the other half of it, the problem, it's the tactile book,
That's right.
but
Yeah,
also where I was going with this, the feedback we got was so many of these programs, and I'm using my little air quotes with that, are trying to help. But what they do is the burden on the teacher, the educator, it's like, okay, well, I got to go to this site. I got to fill this out. I got to answer all this. Now I got to go print out, 35 copies of everything. Right. Now I got to go find, copies of the book. And maybe we've got 3 copies in our library of this book, or maybe I've got, what we've managed to do, all of us, is to put all of this into literally one plastic bag.
Right.
Get it to the home, get it into the classroom, get the teachers where they're talking. And that's the feedback we've heard, is like, everything we need is right there.
Right.
The only thing we need to do is sharpen a pencil. If anything, if we don't want to use a pencil, we'll go with crayon, but everything they need is right there.
Right.
And has been a big deal. And that saves money at the end of the day, even for the school. They're not making copies. They're not having to waste time. We're empowering the teacher as well. And that's what I've heard of a lot of it.
That's right. Yes. Because especially with their time, it is so precious. And everybody's struggling for resources, of course. And that's why we're so thrilled that the patrons of the public library and the Baton Rouge Alliance for Students have sponsored these books, because they are given freely to the children. The school isn't paying for this. The library isn't paying for this. These 2 nonprofits are sponsoring, basically, they're sponsoring these classes, these classrooms filled with the books for the children to take home. Now, we can't do that for all 39,000 children in public schools and private schools. That's a lot of children.
It is a lot.
I mean, just if we did the 3rd graders alone, it's 5,000 kids. So we're just doing this pilot for about less than 400, and we're going to run it for month after month after month, and then gather our information and tweak the program and think of strategies on how to scale it up. But ultimately, we're going to ask other people to start to pitch in and help sponsoring a class or just a child. Just a child. We're getting the books at an amazing discount, because we normally buy books from special publishers who publish for children. And Tara's been talking to the distributors, and they're excited to be a part of this program. And they're making the right kind of books of it. It's not the duds. It's not the books that no one will buy. They're making the right books available to us at the smallest cost that they possibly can, so that we can pass them along.
And we're trying to make sure that all these books are high interest. We want to make sure, like we said earlier, that they have that wide reading range. So we have something for the struggling reader, and we have something for the avid reader. We want to make sure that they are multicultural and diverse. We want to make sure that they are fun. There's mysteries, there's comedies, there's action, there's a little bit of everything each month. Adventure, yes. And so that way they have lots of choices. obviously can't give them 50 choices. It would take a long time, and we want to keep our time at a minimum so we don't disrupt the school day and take too much time away from the classroom. So we do give them enough choices, and they're all high interest books, so that way they can find something that they like. And we have a little bit of nonfiction, and we have series reading, and then we have some standalone titles. So we've got lots of different things for them to choose, and some realism too, and nonfiction, historical fiction is kind of mixed up in there as well.
Right.
So lots of different things coming for them in the coming months with these books that we've been choosing. We think that they're going to be really a good choice for the students. We've been getting feedback from the librarians at the schools about what is popular, what's being ordered often in the school system that they see a high turnover on. And obviously here at the library, we see what gets checked out regularly. So we're trying to make sure that we get the best choices for these kids.
Right, because yes, Diary of a Wimpy Kid and that whole series are the #1 books that checked out from the library. But that may not be the hit book at a particular school.
Right.
So again, if they're already reading this series with the Owl Diaries, then let's feed that flame for a little while, because especially with children's publishing, if one book sells, there's 2, then there's 3, then there's 10 in the series. Think of the Magic School Bus and the Magic Tree House.
There's tons.
Think of Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. Let's go back in time.
Yes, hundreds to each series. Yeah,
that's right. If 1 is good, 2 is better, and 3 is awesome. So we're being, I think, very strategic about the book selections that we're putting in front of the children, and we are looking at the covers, because people do judge a book by their cover. You're in the publishing business, and it's not just the words on the page; it's the whole package. Some of the books are filled with images, and other books, there's just an image every once in a while, and it's really more of a traditional chapter book with an image every now and then to kind of keep the child regrounded. One thing that I always try to get the kids to do is make the movie in your head as we're reading the book or as we're listening to the book. And then they become much more active. They're active listeners, active readers. And then the big dream is make your own book. We like this character. Okay, now what's your story with that? And going through the series, we'll have opportunities to kind of elicit some of that from the kids here and there as we go. We're also going to be doing little book trailers. The staff is going to be doing that so that you can whet the appetite, just like a movie trailer does. We can talk about it just in just a few sentences to whet your appetite, so that the teacher will be able to share those with the class, and that way they can be better shoppers when it's their time to go to the table and select. And then ultimately, of course, the dream would be, can the kids make some of those book trailers and have their voice behind the book, Dragon in a Bag, and so they say why they really like this book and why they want to read the next one.
And they want to hear that from their peers. That's the biggest motivation, is to hear that excitement from their peers. That's more motivation than we could ever
because
ignite.
Ultimately they know that we're trying to sell them something, whereas peer-to-peer, it's word of mouth marketing at its finest and most pure. So
well, I think it's been a huge success. Everything that I've heard, everyone's loving it, and I think it's very impactful. It makes a difference, and I think that's some of the things, like you mentioned, we're capturing some of those KPIs and some of those metrics, and we've got some real, I think, some groundbreaking metrics coming pretty soon, that people haven't seen, that we're going to be able to, I think we'll be able to announce some of that here in the very near, future, of some of the stuff that once wasn't able to be tracked. Now can be. And some of the stuff that we're moving in that direction. I know, Terry, you and I've talked a lot about that. And I think we're getting close, there. So I think this is going to be, hopefully this is, here to stay, and we can continue to move the needle. But I think at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure we had a chance to, thank you guys for participating, and everybody, on your team. I know our team's worked hard. I think we've put and to the point where Terry in my office even mentioned, she was like, "Hey, we're putting a lot of time, here." And it's like, yeah, this is a lot of time to make this
Front-loading the
happen.
effort.
Front loading the effort, that's right.
But I will tell you that our director feels that this is, and he allowed us to share this with the board at the monthly Board of Control meeting. And our board was universally excited about this. And our director shared that, he feels this is foundational.
Yeah.
We intend to try this for 5 years because you don't change a culture
That's right.
overnight. Even in 5 months, you don't change a culture, especially since we're kind of tangentially touching it.
Right.
But this has the chance of really making a difference in the lives of those particular children, but beyond that, their families, and then the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
And it's your conversation with me that kickstarted it, because we were just putting it back in the drawer. Well,
Yes.
COVID,
Hopefully in the
Yeah.
future.
yeah, one day.
One day.
Well, one day's here.
That's right.
So
No, I think that's,
We're excited.
I know
about rolling.
with your team, I know with ours, that's, kind of the MO, that's what we call kind of one of our, core values, kind of question why, that's, why can't we do it? I know there's a million reasons why we can't, but why, let's make this happen. And I think that's to you guys' credit, to everybody that's helped pull this thing together. And for everybody, this came together fast. It really did.
It really did. Yeah.
This thing, I think, went from idea to kids crying that they were getting to keep books in less than 90 days.
Yeah, it was,
and
definitely.
That's
if
right.
not, maybe even 60.
I think it was less than 60,
It was
actually.
less than 60
Yeah.
because we had to make phone calls on cell phones over holidays to the book publishers.
Yeah, we were like, how
to
fast
say,
can you get them
yes,
here?
because people don't realize that supply chain slowdown, that also
Oh, yeah.
matters to books.
Definitely.
And, who knows where our books are out in a barge or on a giant shipping container out in the ocean.
Yeah.
But we need to get these books here
That's
fast.
right. That's right.
Awesome.
They come by truck.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you stopping in, being able to tell some of our story. I think it's really, you guys are putting the effort, behind it, the big lift. But at the end of the day, we're just happy to be a part of it and,
We are
move it along.
That's right.
Very
It's for the
excited to work
community.
together. Yes, that's right.
So,
We thank
well,
you.
awesome. Well, how about this? I tell everybody you got more important things to do than talk to me all day. You got to find the books for the next round.
That's right. We
And
got to
then-
keep finding some more books.
And let's come back and let's keep updating everybody of where we are. I think it's important. It's one thing. I see too many times programs get rolled out and then it's a big, excitement when it goes. And then sometimes you forget, and we're guilty of it. We forget to tell our own story sometimes and to remind, of what's going on. And so I think as long as we can, keep this moving and learn from some of the hiccups and learn from some of the mistakes and keep finding ways to make this the most efficient way to move that 1 millimeter that's going to change
That's right.
things
Have a huge impact.
18 years down the road.
That's
So,
right. That's it.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks for spending some time, and we will talk to you soon, and we will continue on.
All right.
Y'all have a great
Take
weekend.
care.
Talk to you later.